Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Bold and Beautiful. Today, RJ's return increases Forrester colors. Spencer's ready for the fight. RJ Forrester is back. The current recast bears a significant resemblance to his father, Rich Forrester, as Brooke Logan Forrester asserted. B&B's decision to remake the part that a solid actor, Joshua Hoffman, most lately played ties into the arising family conflict between the Forresters and the Spencers. Add in that two of the main combatants are sisters, Brooke and Katie Logan Spencer. Eric Forrester's decision to align with Katie is also largely interesting. He said that Ridge will be bothered by this move when it becomes given, but will get over it. Observers likely allowed that it wouldn't be anytime soon. Rich Forrester is a hothead. Ridge has a quixotical personality. The same can be said for Brooke, with those two lovebirds being quite the well-matched brace. RJ told his parents that he was glad to see them back together, but added a comment that underplays his emotional connection to them. The character that Nicoletti now plays said that his past the age where his parents being together affects him all that important. Observers have long seen that children of any age, on either side of the screen, are impacted by their parents' connubial situation. Consider, as an illustration, Steffi Forrester Finnegan's and Thomas Forrester's repeated responses to Ridge and Brooke's 9 marriages. Katie Spencer is a Logan through and through. Katie again added the Spencer name to her moniker. She no way fell out of love with Bill Spencer but had to travel a long way to trust him again. With that thing fulfilled, his marriage gift hit the exact right note. Enduing her a ready-to-make fashion house was an amazing vote of confidence in her eventuality. That's a subject that Bill and Eric fully agreed upon. In discrepancy, Rich and Brooke are certain that Katie is in over her head and has fully undervalued her worth or capability to succeed with Logan. Brooke Logan is a Forrester as well. Brooke made commodity of herself after starting with the most modest onsets. Her backstory is one of the most fabled in all of day. The power of Lang's character is so significant that she was ultimately suitable to earn the respect and love of Stephanie Forrester, who famously abused her rival back in the adulatory day. This speaks well of Brooke, whose keen fashion sense and business mind give FC a real armament. Katie's counter with Eric appears to give her an unanticipated edge. Having him as her tutor and now being suitable to tap into his new designs means everything as the Forresters, Spencers, and Logans prepare to ultimately face off on the runway, where an unchangeable winner will crop. The Forrester services buzzed with a pressure so thick it felt like it had weight, as if every step across the marble bottom echoed with the warning that commodity seismic was about to shift in Los Angeles, and no bone felt it further than Rich Forrester, who stood gaping out at the skyline, jaw gripped, senses stoned by instinct alone, because a Forrester always knew when war was coming. He'd been raised in it, molded by it, and now, with the unforeseen return of RJ Forrester, the youthful son who had formerly fled the chaos of this dynasty, Rich felt the ground beneath his conglomerate begin to fluctuate. For RJ didn't come back for nostalgia, and he didn't come back for leverage. He came back because the battle lines were forming again, and blood always called blood when the house of Forrester was hovered. RJ stood just outside the superintendent's suite, wallet still in hand, his eyes surveying the halls that had formerly felt like home but now looked like a battleground disguised in couture, models brooding in corners, sidekicks glancing nervously at unrestricted doors, contrivers grunting about Spencer moves and secret buyouts. And the youthful Forrester realized in that moment that he hadn't returned to a family, he'd returned to a war zone, and his presence alone was formally shifting the balance of power, because word traveled presto in this structure, and by the time he stepped forward, Brooke formally knew, Eric formally knew, and Steffi, half across the globe, was being informed that her baby family was back in the fosses. Ridge turned the moment the door opened, and for alternate, the legionnaire in him fell silent, replaced by a father who hadn't seen his son in far too long, and the look in RJ's eyes said everything: resoluteness, urgency, and the unmistakable fire of a Forrester awakening, and before either of them spoke, Ridge knew this wasn't a visit, it was a protestation. "You came back," Ridge said still. "I had to," RJ replied, setting down his bag like a dog face dropping gear. "I heard what's passing. About Spencer. About the pressure. About what Dad's covering." Ridge's expression darkened, because no matter how important he tried to shield his children from the unpretty trueness of business, the name Spencer always set up its way into their bloodstreams like bane. Across city, in the satiny, cold glass palace that housed Spencer Publications, Bill Spencer stood with his hands clasped behind his reverse, eyes locked on the megacity he'd conquered, a bloodsucker surveying home he intended to expand, while Liam and Wyatt sat behind him, pressure etched into every line of their bodies, because they felt it too, the shift, the stir, the awakening of the Forrester machine. RJ's back, Wyatt said, breaking the silence. Bill scowled sluggishly. Good, he replied. That means they are spooked. Liam lowered. Or it means they are ready. Bill turned, eyes flashing. They've always been ready. That's what makes this fun. 4 times, the Spencers and Forresters had danced between alliance and obliteration, love and action, marriages forged in passion and shattered in courtrooms. But this time was different, because this time, the prize wasn't just control, it was survival. Rumors swirled that Bill was situating Spencer Publications to acquire a controlling interest in Forrester Creations, using shell companies, silent mates, and strategic pressure that Eric himself could feel tensing around his heritage, and with Steffi gone and Ridge stretched thin, RJ's return felt like fortune stepping back into the ring. Brooke rushed into Ridge's office moments latterly, eyes wide with emotion when she saw RJ. You're then, she breathed, pulling him into a fierce grasp. I couldn't stay down, he said vocally. Not when everything's on the line. Brooke glanced at Ridge, sweat fluttering. He knows, doesn't he? Ridge jounced. He knows the Spencers are circling. RJ uncurled. Also let them, he said. Forrester doesn't fold. It fights. The words echoed through the room, kindling commodity ancient and important, and Ridge felt a swell of pride that battled any design he'd ever created, because this was heritage, this was blood, and the Forrester army had just gained another dogface. Meanwhile, Bill Spencer was formally moving his pieces. A late-night call was placed. A deal was rumored into stir. Figures shifted. Influence expanded. And nearly in the murk, a secret cooperation formed, one that could fracture Forrester from the inside. They won't see it coming, Bill muttered to himself. They no way do. Back at Forrester Creations, Eric gathered Ridge, Brooke, and RJ in the design room, girdled by sketches that represented decades of brilliance. This company is further than fabric and fame, Eric said gravely. It's family. And it's under attack. RJ stepped forward. Also educate me how to defend it. Eric smiled, but there was sword behind it. We do'n't just defend, son. We fight. We outcreate. We outmaneuver. And when necessary, we outlive. News of RJ's return spread like campfire through Los Angeles, reaching every corner of the fashion world, every rival boardroom, and most importantly, every Spencer observance. And with each tale came the same conclusion: the Forresters were buttressing their species, and this battle was no longer theoretical, it was ineluctable. Liam paced his office, uneasy. Dad, this is getting dangerous, he advised. These aren't just business moves. These are families. Bill scoffed. So were the Romans. Didn't stop them from erecting a conglomerate. Wyatt studied the skyline. But conglomerates fall, he said still. Bill's eyes narrowed. Not mine. At Forrester, RJ immersed himself in design, business strategy, and family history, absorbing every assignment like armor, driven by the sense that he'd returned not just to belong, but to cover. And as Ridge watched his son step into that heritage, he realized commodity profound. RJ wasn't the boy who ran from chaos. Presently he was the man who would defy it. And with every daylight, the war between Forrester and Spencer crept closer, alliances shifting, secrets surfacing, hearts colliding, because in this megacity, fashion was power, love was influence, and family was both armament and guard. The colors were assembling. The Forresters were ready. And the Spencers? They were formally planning their strike. Morning light poured through the glass walls of Forrester Creations, but no quantum of sun could warm the bite that had settled over the structure, because commodity unnoticeable yet unmistakable had begun to coil around the company, a tensing presence that indeed the models tasted as they walked the halls more still than usual, sidekicks brooding rather of drooling, contrivers clinging sketchpads like securities, and in the superintendent's suite, Ridge stood with RJ beside him as Brooke scrolled through her phone, her face draining of color by the alternate, until eventually she rumored, it's passing. And those two words carried the weight of vaticination, because when Brooke Logan said commodity felt wrong, history had proven that catastrophe was formally in stir. What is? Ridge asked sprucely, and Brooke turned the screen toward him, revealing a breaking fiscal alert. Spencer Publications acquires major stake in international textile distributor linked to Forrester Creations. Ridge's jaw hardened. That supplier is one of our lifelines, he murmured. Eric entered moments latterly, formally apprehensive. Bill is cutting off our oxygen, he said grimly. RJ strengthened. He's not indeed hiding it presently. Eric shook his head. This isn't just pressure. It's a communication. Ridge slammed his hand against the office. That is coming for us. Brooke swallowed. Or that is formally outside. Across city, Bill Spencer watched the request change on a massive screen, satisfaction entwining at the corners of his mouth. Phase 1 complete, he muttered. Wyatt raised an eyebrow. You're really choking their force chain. Bill jounced. You do attack the walls. You starve the megacity. Liam looked uneasy. Dad, this isn't a game. Eric erected that company with his bare hands. Bill turned sluggishly. And I erected mine the same way. The difference is I no way let sentiment decelerate me down. Wyatt crossed his arms. What about Brooke? Bill signed. Collateral. The word echoed in Liam's mind long after Bill dismissed them. He left Spencer Publications with a knot in his casket, recollections of hope, of his mama, of every moment that love had been used as influence between these two families, and he couldn't shake the feeling that this time, the fallout would be disastrous. Back at Forrester, RJ refused to stand idle. He moved through departments, speaking with directors, asking questions, learning names, erecting trust, his presence amping the staff in a way indeed Ridge hadn't anticipated. They know who you are, Brooke told him still as they watched workers unbend when he passed. And now they know you're staying. RJ jounced. They need to see that this family isn't shrinking. It's growing. Brooke smiled sorely. I've watched wars start in these halls. They always begin with fear. RJ met her aspect. Also let's give them hope. But stopgap was fragile, and Bill Spencer knew exactly how to fracture it. By autumn, another blow landed. An anonymous tip touched off an inspection into Forrester's overseas accounts. Indurating finances demanded for a major launch. Ridge stormed into Eric's office. This is targeted, he snapped. Someone fed them those figures. Eric's eyes narrowed. Which means someone on the inside is talking. Brooke's heart sank. You suppose there's a snake? Ridge exhaled sluggishly. I suppose Bill wouldn't get this close without help. The word spread still are operative. And paranoia crept through the company like bank. Ganders dallied. Exchanges stopped when someone approached. Trust, formerly the backbone of Forrester, began to erode. RJ eavesdropped two sidekicks brooding near the design room. What if it's one of us? One muttered. What if Bill formally owns this place? RJ stepped forward. He doesn't, he said forcefully. And he won't. They goggled at him, startled. We're a family, RJ continued. Families fight. But we don't vend each other out. His words sustained them, but the damage had begun. That evening, Brooke set up Ridge alone in the darkened design plant, gaping at an untreated sketch. You suppose someone then's betraying us, she said vocally. Ridge didn't look up. I suppose Bill is 3 way ahead. He always is. Brooke approached him. His not insurmountable. Ridge laughed plaintively. He married you to get near to us. Brooke squinched. That was times ago. Ridge eventually faced her. And yet then we're again. At Spencer Publications, Bill entered a call. The inspection worked, the voice said. Finances are firmed. Bill smiled. Good. Now push phase 2. He hung up, eyes flashing. Let them eat each other alive. The coming day, chaos erupted. A non-public Forrester design blurted online, RJ's first major conception, a line meant to emblematize renewal, now splashed across blogs and fashion feeds before its debut. Ridge goggled at the screen in unbelief. That train was secured, he said. Eric's hands quivered. Only a sprinkle of people had access. Brooke rumored, RJ. RJ entered just as the room filled with blameworthiness. What happened? He asked. Rich dithered. Your design blurted. RJ said. That's insolvable. Eric studied him precisely. Who did you partake it with? RJ shook his head. No bone. I swear. The room thickened with mistrustfulness, not because they believed he'd betray them, but because treason now felt possible from anyone. And nearly across city, Bill Spencer watched the news of the leak with dark satisfaction. Now, he muttered, they'll start turning on their own. Liam burst into his father's office. You blurted RJ's work. Bill didn't deny it. I exposed weakness. Liam's voice rose. You're destroying people. Bill stepped closer. I'm erecting a conglomerate. Liam shook his head. At what cost? Bill's eyes hardened. Whatever it takes. At Forrester, RJ sat alone in the design room, gaping at his ruined debut, fists gripped, when Steffi called from overseas. I heard, she said gently. I'm proud of you for coming back. His voice cracked. They suppose someone then betrayed us. Steffi's tone stoned. Bill is behind this. RJ swallowed. Also I won't let him win. Steffi smiled through the phone. That's what being a Forrester means. Ridge watched his son crop from that call with fire in his eyes and realized commodity dangerous and beautiful had been born. RJ wasn't just defending the family, he was getting its guard. And as the Forresters climbed to contain the damage, ignorant of which shadow hid the cutter, Bill Spencer prepared his coming move, one that wouldn't just weaken Forrester Creations. It would tear a heart out of the family itself. The pressure that followed the leak dallied like a storm pall over Forrester Creations, heavy and unmoving, as if the very walls of the structure were bracing for impact, because now the war was no longer abstract or rumored about in boardrooms. It was particular, bleeding into every relationship, every memory, every fragile bond that had ever was between the Forresters and the Spencers, and nowhere was that further apparent than in the lives caught between them, where love had formerly erected islands and now hovered to come the veritably armament that would tear those islands piecemeal. Hope Logan sat in her office at Hope for the Future, gaping at a half-finished sketch that suddenly felt pointless, because the news of RJ's blurted designs and the inspection had spread presto, and with it came the unmistakable echo of history repeating itself, the same history that had formerly torn her parents piecemeal, that had formerly turned her marriage into a battleground, and she felt it creeping back into her bones like a familiar pang, the kind you fate indeed before the pain completely blooms. When Liam appeared at her doorway, she knew before he spoke that commodity was wrong. My pater is behind this, he said still, and Hope closed her eyes, because part of her had formerly known. You do'n't have evidence, she rumored, though her heart betrayed her with every word. Liam stepped outside. I know him, he replied. His raising. This isn't about business presently, it's about domination. Hope stood. So what are we supposed to do? Choose sides again? Her voice quivered. We've spent our lives paying for their wars. Liam reached for her hand. That's why we can't let them use us. But indeed, as he said it, both of them felt the verity pressing in they were formally being used. Across city, Brooke faced Bill Spencer in his glass-walled office, the megacity spangling behind him like an area he believed formerly belonged to him. This has gone too far, she said, wrathfulness blazing through the familiarity that still dallied between them. Bill leaned back. You came there knowing exactly who I am. Brooke shook her head. You're tearing my family piecemeal. Bill's smile softened, dangerously. Your family is a fort erected on emotion. All I'm doing is knocking on the door. Brooke stepped closer. You're hurting RJ. He just came home. Bill's eyes flitted. Also, he should have stayed gone. The words cut deeper than Brooke anticipated. You do'n't have to do this, she contended. Eric doesn't earn it. Rich doesn't earn it. Bill rose sluggishly. And neither did I, the way your family has treated me for decades. Brooke rumored, this isn't vengeance. This is destruction. Bill moved closer. Every conglomerate is erected on destruction, Brooke. The question is who's left standing. Back at Forrester, RJ poured himself into work with grim intensity, determined that Bill Spencer would not define his return. He reworked designs, met with buyers, proposed bold generalities that spoke of adaptability and revitalization, and sluggishly, nearly gradually, morale began to rise. His got Ridge's fire, a developer rumored. And Eric's soul, another added. Ridge watched his son lead and felt pride clash with fear, because soldiers were forged in battle, but battles always left scars. Eric pulled RJ away one evening. Your forefather erected this company on creativity, he said. But he kept it alive with heart. RJ jounced.